Alright, so we're moving on to the ball on track, and here's an example of what yours could look like. Everyone's animation is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, over the playing of this is going to be a little bit difficult to see. But you'll see that we have the ball hitting some key points. The ball coming down, does a little bounce right here, and then it starts rolling, and then it bounces there and starts rolling, bounces there. Okay. You'll also notice that the speed of the ball is gradually getting quicker. Okay, as the ramps go more and more angled. This is pretty flat compared to the next one. That one's pretty flat compared to the next one, and the last one is pretty steep. Okay, the last one's going to actually pick up a bit of speed. So we're going to have that in there. Also, as it gets to the edge of this, you'll see how it kind of pauses for a couple frames, and then drops down, and then goes back up. Now, obviously, this is an animated look at a ball bouncing and rolling down these ramps. Physically, this would be impossible for the ball to roll down this ramp and pick up speed enough to lift it higher. Okay, the ball actually wouldn't ever go that high. It'd probably go about this high, and then it would come back to like here, then it would come back to there, and then it would come back to here, 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 and then it rests at the bottom. Okay, but again, we're animators, so we can do whatever we want. Okay, we keep physics in mind, but we don't need to follow it exactly if that's what the art direction calls for. Cool. All right, so that's the finished product. Okay, now that was what you're watching was the non-motion blur. You'd also have a motion blur one. Okay, so I'm going to save this file, and I have a starter file here, BallOnTrack startup, and that's the one you're going to use. And you'll see that it looks pretty plain. I mean, everything's gray, and we have some ramps here. There's 4 ramps, and there's a platform. And what we're going to do is we're going to save this as, I'm going to call it Sarcona _ ball on track _ 01. Okay, and just like our previous assignments, we're not going to try to go crazy with this and set 1,000 keyframes on this guy. We're going to do them one at a time. Okay, so we're going to go to this front view. If you go on the front view of this thing, it makes it a lot easier to kind of move the stuff around because it's already like right here, as opposed to perspective view where if you accidentally move it, well, now it's like off the platform. Okay, so we're going to stick to the front view, and we're going to animate. Now, unlike the bouncing ball where we just animated the Y going first, in this case we're going to animate the Y and the X at the same time because he needs to go here. You know, the Y and the X are kind of dependent on each other in order for this to happen. Okay. Now, if you accidentally move the ball away, you can just reset these here. It jumps back to where it should start from. Okay. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to go into there, grab the ball, and I'm going to set some keyframes on just these 2. So we're going to grab both of these at the same time, and instead of, again, going up here, keying selected, I want to do that a little more efficiently. So I'm going to go to my animation menu, go to animate set key option box, and just make sure that my all keyable from channel box is selected so that when I do all keyable from channel box and hit set key, that it sets the key there. Okay, so before I set a key, let me undo. I want to go to my preferences, and I want to make sure right now I'm on real time 24. That's a bad thing. I want to be on 30. So I go up to settings. I want to change this to 30. Hit save. Reset my timeline to 1, and we'll leave that at 150. Okay, so I'm at frame 1. These are zeroed out. Excuse me. I'm going to hit S to set a key, and there we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, I don't know the timing for every single one of these. I just want to get my keyframes set. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go up every 10 frames. The first one's going to be 9 frames. And I'm just going to put this in position. So this guy here, Okay, he's right there at 10. I'm zooming in. I want to make sure that he's not intersecting this like that. If I can make that darker, it might be easier for you to see. And also hide the grid. There we go. So you can see how the blue is intersecting that. So I want to make sure that they're nice and touching like this. And I'll set my other key. I didn't want to move it any in the X. I just wanted it to go straight down. Okay, so I'm going to go up to 20. And now this time I have to move both. So I'm going to move both of these down here. And imagining that this is rolling down this ramp, what's the farthest point that this ball is going to be touching? So I think it's probably going to be about there. Okay, you can see right where it's at the edge of this. And again, making sure it's not, above it, making sure it's not in it. We'll set it about there. There we go. And then we'll set a key. We'll go up to frame 30. Now here, I have to kind of decide, okay, this isn't going to go straight like that. Okay, once it hits this, it's going to have like a little bit of an arc to it. So let's say it lands about here. And this is where everyone's going to be a little bit different in how they animate this. This is a bowling ball rolling down here, hitting, and then rolling down here. It would basically hit the edge and fall straight down and roll down. So we're going to have a little bit lighter than a bowling ball so that we can have it have a nice little arch to it. Okay, again, we're trying to get that nice and accurate. Set another key. Let's go up to 40. We go down to the bottom here. Where's the last point it's going to touch? Maybe there. Set a key. Go up to 50. Nice little arch. Or arc. Okay, go up to 60. Set a key, good. Go up to 70. Set a key there. Oops, go up to 80. Set a key here, go up to 90. Set a key there. I'm going to raise it up a tiny bit. There we go. Go up to 100. And again, I'm going straight across. I don't want to have any Y movement at all in that at that point. Okay, I haven't done any of the bounces. That's like the last thing we do is the bounces. Right about there. Go up another 10. We'll set that right about here. Okay, and now for this part, I'm going up another 10. I'm going to set it. Sorry, not 10. I'm going to put 20. I'm going to set it straight across. I'm going to go in between at 120 and just pull this down to the middle and pull it over. Could have done that, go up 10 and go up there, but it's like having it straight across at that point. Oops. There we go. Okay, and then at 140, this is going to go up like that. Okay. So now we have our major keyframes. Okay, so if I hit play, there goes the ball. All right, now it's really hard to see what's going on because what's happening with each one of these keyframes is that we're getting some slow start, slow fast, slow fast, slow fast. I don't want that. What I want to happen is I want to see, just like a linear movement of this thing without any transitions of speed movements. So I'm going to go to my graph editor, I'm going to frame it, and you'll see that all of these are trying to go nice and smooth curves inside here. We're just going to click this and make it linear. Now we can hit play, and we get a better sense of what's happening with the movement, because it's just going straight. And I can tell by some of these, like here, that's going way too quick. Okay? And you can tell it's like speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. But we'll fix all that. So let's go into our dope sheet. Okay, now this is another way to kind of separate this stuff, instead of popping the dope sheet out here, I don't have a second screen to go to. What I can do is do this view here. You see this layout? Click that one, and it shows the graph editor. I can just switch this from panels, panel, and then change this to dope sheet right there. Okay, so now I just have these docked together. Okay, and again, I'll go to the front view for this so I can see it better. Okay, so let me look at these one at a time, and if it helps, use your work area. Okay, so I'm just hit play. Okay, it looks like it's falling a bit too fast. Now again, this is up to artistic interpretation of how fast these things should be moving. So I'm going to slow that down. Now also keeping in mind, I need to make this bigger, that I'm going to have to add some sort of acceleration to this. It's not just going to go, okay, it's going to go slowly, like it's being dropped, let go from here, so it's going to pick up speed until it hits that thing there. So even if the speed going down is like, okay, that looks like a good speed to drop down, I would still want to nudge it over a couple frames just so I can add that really slow down and then acceleration after. Okay, so that's probably good there. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the next one. So I just grab all the keyframes except for that one that I'm working on. It's bigger. And I just move them down. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger. Make this bigger. Okay, now I can see, okay, I want to take that front part and make that a little bit bigger. And you can see where this one might be a little bit longer of an animation. That's looking good. Okay, let me take these. And now I'm watching this transition from here to here, and making sure that the speed from this into that matches. Oops, gotta make this a bit bigger. Okay, and I can tell it goes a little bit too quick. If you watch there, it just goes a bit too quick. So, make that a little bit bigger. Another 2 frames. Yep, that's good. And again, we can adjust this stuff later. It's just a matter of setting those up. Alright, now if we look at this and say, okay, here is this keyframe at the start of this ramp is at 32, and that last one is at 60. So we can do some quick math. It's 28. But just so you can see, it's 28. Okay. So now when we come to this, right here, this one hits at frame 76. So the next keyframe needs to be less than 28 units away. Okay. So if I say we're at 76 plus 28, so we're going to be less than 104. So that's just a good way to kind of set that up so that we have that level of speed happening. So if I bring this over to, let's say, what is that at, like 99? You'll see that now that's going to go a bit quicker, giving me that acceleration. Okay, so that's, again, 76 to 99. So now we have 23 frames, so we just cut it by 5 frames. So this is 5 frames shorter than that one, giving us a bit quicker animation. So then the next one would be 18 frames, if we were keeping that same 5 frame rule. Okay. Also because, and I don't like to do the timing of this one, you know, mathematically. I just like to look at it and see if it's working. Okay, so that one looks like it's good. Maybe a little bit quick. So let me grab these and just nudge it a little bit open. It's too far. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now this keyframe is at 110, and I'm going to add 18 to that, so that'll be 138. $128. There we go. Okay, and I always rewind it and look at the whole thing. Make sure everything looks like it's flowing together. Yep, that's looking good. Even this little transition down to the next one, right there, looks good. Technical difficulty. There we go. So yeah, always play it, watch it from the top to the bottom. It doesn't take that long. And then look at that and see if you're liking what's happening between these transitions. Okay, because your eye is going to be the best judge of that. And if your eye is misleading you, then you just need more experience looking at that kind of stuff. Okay, so the last one was 18. This one was 18. This one should be about 13 frames. So let's go to where that one starts here, right there. And that's at 137. Easy math, 13 should be 150. There we go. Okay, I don't even think I want 150 there. I think that's still too quick. Pull it back a couple frames. There we go. That seems better, that transition there. Okay, that's good. And then let's look at that transition from here to here. Okay, that's a bit slow. Okay, you can see how it just goes really slow right there. So we'll take that and bring these closer together. There we go. And then this part of it traveling along here is going too fast, so we'll just make that more frames in between. Still too quick. I brought that all the way up to 200. I know we're going to have it slow down, and I need enough frames for that process to happen. Bring this side in so we don't keep rewinding too far. There we go. That should be good there. Okay, let's see. Come here. That's fine there. Alright, that should be good. Okay, so now let me rewind it. Make sure I have enough frames, yes. And I'm just going to change my background color so we can see this better. Perfect, black is good. And I'm going to rewind it and play. Now I'm playing at about 30 frames per second, so I'm getting a pretty realistic evaluation of how long this is going to take. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Alright, now the next thing I want to do is, let me grab the ball, and I just want to allow a little bit more time. All the movement seems right, but I just want to allow a little bit more time inside these frames for all my transitions and stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything like that, and I'm going to, let's say I go up to 300 on this. Okay, so my last keyframe was 240. Yours might not be 240. It might be 200 or it might be 300. Okay, and I'm just going to add some frames. So I'm just going to take this whole animation and I'm going to go to my scale tool or not. Come on, there we go. Oh, I switched to it before. There, I'm in my scale tool, so I just marqueed the points. I'm in the scale tool, and what I can do is just drag this box all the way up to 300. Just about there. Okay, it's a little shy of it, but that's fine. And what this does is it takes my keyframes and it just stretches them all out. So now I have some keyframes here, some keyframes there. So it's going to go a bit slower overall, but that will allow me enough time to add in these transitions. Also, looking at this a little bit slower, I get a really good sense for how fast this thing, is moving. Okay, or how the transitions between them are looking. Okay, so it looks good. Now, one of the issues that we have, if I go to the graph editor, you can probably see this better, is that when I marquee some frames, you'll see that they're not at an actual number. It's like 39.67, which is an actual number, but it's like a not a whole number. That's the word I was looking for. Okay, and all of these are like that. Because I scaled it out, it does that. So what I'm going to do is just marquee this. So I grab the entire graph, and under Edit, I'm going to say Snap Option Box. And what this is going to do is it's going to snap to the time. So it's just going to find the closest frame and just snap to that. There we go. So now if I marquee the frames, you'll see it's evenly 40, it's evenly 74, it's evenly 95. Okay, so there snaps them right to it. Works wonderful. Okay, we can watch it. There's not going to be a huge change since we were, in the halfway of frames. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to add or save as, and we'll call this 102. And we can do a little underscore here and say base animation done, or you can say XY, translate X, translate Y done, whatever you want to. Okay, so now that we have this, just the base keyframe set inside here, in the graph editor we want to go through now and start to refine what these look like. Okay, and you can use the little swapper thing here and have the graph editor down here and this here, but I like to just have the graph editor be a bit bigger. So I'm just going to have this guy off to the side and have my graph editor here covering a portion of my stuff. Okay. And this doesn't need to be as big, so I'm going to shrink that. Good. Alright, so we'll focus on one movement at a time. So this to that. Okay, so this to that, it should start off slow. So I'm going to grab these and say slow down. The X is not going to do anything because it's already slowed down. It's doing nothing right now. And then the Y will have that slow to fast movement. Okay. So now as I hit play, I can see that we're picking up speed. Okay, so it looks like nothing and then it starts to fall. Okay, so that's good there. And again, we're not adding the bounces yet. That comes last. Alright, now the same thing should happen here. It shouldn't just like boom, just go. It should hit this thing and then gradually pick up speed. Okay. So again, I'm going to go to here. Now I'm not going to grab the whole keyframe and make it flat, because then what's going to happen is it's going to slow down right before it hits that thing, and I don't want it to slow down. So this guy is going to remain linear. This guy is going to remain flat. Same thing here. Flat. Okay? That way we have this transition, this speeding up of that keyframe. Okay, so now you saw it hits, then it starts to speed up a bit. Okay, now if I want to exaggerate that more, if I want that whole effect to happen, a little bit longer, because it's just kind of like picking up speed and going, I can grab both graphs like that. I'm going to go to curves, weighted tangents, and go to tangents, free tangent weight. Okay. And then from here I can grab the keyframe and just start tweaking it. Now you'll notice that as I tweak this handle, that handle's also moving. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to do a break tangent, which is that keyframe. There's also under tangents, break tangents, and we can also unify. So now if I grab this one, it has no effect on the other one. Alright, so I can just pull this over. Good. I'm going to break this one and pull it over. Okay, now let's take a look and see. Alright, now this is where you can tell maybe we're getting a little bit too quick here. Okay, so maybe I want to pull this back some. Because I slowed it down so much at the front of this, I might need to adjust it to pull it back a little bit. Or I might have to add a little bit more time. I think that's probably good there. The real animation, if we did this like physically, it would be over 1,000 frames with this ball rolling down this ramp. So we're kind of cutting it short, being at 300 or so, in order for this thing to look good enough and render out within a reasonable amount of time. Okay. All right, so now we have this like that. Okay, so that looks okay. You know, again, we can come back and adjust it. Now this transition here from this ramp to this, if you look at it, it looks very boring. It's just kind of like one direction, boom, switching to another direction. So these guys here, all of our transitional ones, these ones should be spline, which is that one there. Okay, and what that means, if we look at the Y, it's easier to see, is that we have a nice transition from one point to the next. Okay, same thing here. It's harder to see, one point to the next. Now what that might mean, if we go back to our front view, which I am at, you'll see that the ball is going to kind of float a little bit. We'll fix that as well. And then come down, okay? Because it's trying to keep a nice smooth graph. So what we do is we go to where it's floating, right about there, and we just grab the handlebar and pull it. Now we probably can do both, but we're going to pull one handlebar here, then go down to the other handlebar and pull that there. Because one's pushing it back and the other one's pushing it down. And then we watch and make sure that he stays on there the whole time. And you can see he is floating still a little bit there. Okay, I think I want to adjust that in this direction here. There we go. And again, we come back and we look at it again and again and again. I go to wireframe and I also look at it. And sometimes it's even easier to see the animation happen in wireframe. Okay, that's good. All right, so now let's watch this. There we go. That's good. Okay, he hits, and then he rolls down there. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. So this first one, which is right here, we can use this red line as our indicator. This first keyframe on the right of this should be flat. Okay, that way we pick up speed. And then this guy here should be spline. Now let's see. Okay, and again, he does float a little bit right there. So we can come in. Just tweak that handlebar. Okay, good. Now we'll go to the next one. Make that flat. Make this spline. Spline. Go where he's floating, right here. And then just tweak the handlebar. Now I'm tweaking the X more, just because the Y is kind of dependent on some other stuff. But if I needed to, like right here he's floating just a hair, I'm going to come down to the Y and just adjust it slightly. There we go. Okay, so now we'll go to the next one, right here. Again, we're making it flat. We're taking this one and making it spline. Seeing if he's floating, which most of the time he's going to be. We just have to go through and tweak it. There we go. Okay, now this one is another rough one. The translate Y here is coming down and just hitting, which is fine. It's going to do that. I don't want it to slow down. Nothing really I can do after that keyframe because it's all flat. So I'll go to the X. And I'm just going to tweak this slightly. Like that. Okay. I just want to smooth out that transition. When we add the little bumps in here, that'll help too. And you can see the arc that it's happening. I think I might want the Y just to be a little bit. Oops. Come on. Let me break these. Just changing how that Y position is happening just so it comes down a little bit different. Okay, just to give you an example, you can see how this is adjusting that Y. So if I have this way down here, the direction that it rolls off this and comes down is going to change as opposed to it being here. Okay. I'm just adjusting that slightly, maybe back a little bit like this. I think I might want, in this case, I actually want to just take that X and just adjust where it is. Okay, so right now it's here. I'm just going to pull that X down a little bit. There we go. So now he just lands a little bit further out. Before he was landing back here, so now he's landing over here. So it just seems to make more sense in how it's falling. There we go. Okay. So now with this, I want to make sure that this end one is flat, because I want him to gradually come to a stop at the end of this ramp. Okay. Now it's a little bit too quick of a stop. So what we're going to do is just take this handlebar and just stretch it out. Now again, I don't want to adjust this other side, so I'm going to break it and just pull it out. I'm also going to tweak these a little bit. Okay, now this is not doing what I need it to do. It looks like it's speeding up a whole lot in order to slow down. Okay, in order for this to get from here to here, in that time, it's not happy. Okay, let me look at it from a little bit further back. Sometimes that'll help too. All right, I think I do need to go to the dope sheet. And I'm just going to take these frames here and just scoot them down. That'll give me a little bit more time in order for all that to kind of slow down. Because I want it to look like it's nearly stopping. Like that. Okay? And then, as it hits this next part, then it's just going to start rolling, and then it goes into the roll. Okay, so these things here should all be nice and smooth, like that, like that. Okay, now my translate Y is also affecting this. That's why it doesn't look right yet. So their translate Y, we'll make this spline, we'll make this smooth. There we go. Give myself some more frames. Alright, and typically in this area you could get away with, the 2 keyframes there, but in this case I want a little bit more control, so I am going to add another keyframe like right in the middle. Okay, right about there. And make sure I'm selected on these, and hit S. Okay, and that gives me another indicator as to, okay, this needs to come down like that. Go to my X and do the same kind of thing. And I'll see this is going from here to there to there. So I just need this transition to happen nicer. There we go. Okay, so that's good enough for now. Alright, now this is going to be the worst part. This might take you a whole class to do this. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. So we're going to focus in on what's happening in this area right here. So this is the X, this is the left to right movement. So if we're looking at what's happening here, and I'm going to zoom this in. About there. Okay, so from here, oops, 290, bring that up. So from 290 to 302, this thing should be in the X direction, moves about halfway across. Okay, but I'm going to split this up even more. So from here at 290 to about here, there's not a whole lot of X movement. So in this graph, there shouldn't be a lot of X movement. So I'm going to break the tangent here and just try to keep this pretty much flat. Okay. Now at the end of this, right here, we basically have the same thing where there's not a whole lot of X movement. So over here, that guy should be pretty flat as well. And then this guy in the middle, because there's a lot of X movement in the middle of this, should be more. So we have this kind of like backwards S. Really, let me stretch it out that way. It looks more like an S. This kind of shape here. Okay. So now if we look at this, you can see we're getting a little bit closer to that mark. Okay. Don't add keyframes. You should be able to handle this with just the 3. Now for the Y, there's a lot of Y movement at the beginning, not a lot of Y movement in the middle, and a lot of Y movement at the end. Okay, so here in the middle, not a lot, so we're going to flatten it out. And then a lot at the end, we're going to do that. Okay, so now let's look at this. Alright, so let's adjust this, because this guy here, you can see he's sticking through. I'm going to just pull that in. Okay, so that side looks good. This side needs a little bit more work. So again, I can play with the Y to get it to pull up more, or I can go to the X and adjust the X. And it's typically better to get the first side done and then go back and tweak the other side. Back to the Y, and it's going to be back and forth, back and forth. There's no way really around that. It's good. We come a little bit here. I'm going to pull this out. And back to the X. Okay, we're going inside this. Let's go back to the Y. Just tightening that up. And we definitely don't want to break any of the tangents in this case, because we're going to lose our nice animation that we would have. Okay, and it's going to be, like I said, just back and forth. You're going to be, you're going to literally think there's no way to get it to hit, but you can, because I've done this many semesters and I've seen everyone get it there. Okay, so now one side's good and the other side's good. Okay, so you see how I got it there. Okay, now it looks like we're floating a little bit here, so to fix that. And that's just because we adjusted the keyframes back here. Let's go to this. Okay, that looks good. And then in between, that's where we're lifting up. So most likely it's going to be on the translate Y. Yep, you can see how we're lifting up here. Okay, in this case, because we are doing a change, I am going to break that one. Still want it to be somewhat smooth there. Might need to go back a little bit more. Yeah, it looks like it jumps and then goes down. So I'm going to add a little bit more time in between those ones. Grab these, pull it up, pull it up. And it looks like we're kind of shooting a little bit. Right here, there we go. See, that should be flat. Okay, right here at the edge, where it just starts to move, it should gradually pick up speed. Okay. Check the Y, make sure we're doing the same kind of thing on the Y. Oops. I'm going to break this one. Let's pull this out a little bit. I can probably get rid of that keyframe here. Let's see. And if you can get rid of a keyframe and still maintain the smoothness, that's the goal. This one I'm going to make 3 tangent weights. I think I need to take that one out. There we go. So I did take those keyframes out that I just put in. And I try to just manipulate this into that. There we go. That's good. Okay. Alright, then I just want to go through and just double check. I'm kind of floating here after tweaking some of the positions and timing and whatever else. So again, I'll just go through and just kind of tweak it. You're not going to want to tweak it, but you have to. That's good there. That's good there. Cool. Alright, so there it is. So now we rewind it. We'll change our background to black. That's good. Oops. Make sure we have the whole time showing. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, I just want to make sure that last transition, which we didn't even look at, is good. It's going to be just in the Y. I just want to make sure it's nice and smooth, which it is. I could even flatten this guy out here, because he would kind of slow down at one point. Yep, perfect. Okay, so let's save this as 3. Graph translates done. Good. Okay. So now we can add the rolling part. And the rolling part, if you just think about it, it's pretty easy. So we're going to rotate this in the Z direction, right there. So I'm going to set a key. We're going to go down to 40. And I'm going to add a little bit of rotation in here at this point. Now the ball, as it goes this way to the right, it's going to go clockwise, okay? And clockwise is actually negative, so that's fine. I just have to remember that. So I'm going to go about 66 or so frames, or value, and set a key. That way we just have this little rotation in here. Okay? Now it's going to keep rotating clockwise until it gets to this point. Okay, now how far? I don't know. I'm just going to set a key. I'm at negative 426. And I'm going to rewind it and see if that makes sense. Okay? If it doesn't make sense, let me go crazy, you'll see, hey, that ball's rolling maybe a little bit too quick. Okay? Or maybe it's not rolling enough. Let's go to that keyframe. There we go. So now you see the ball sliding down and not really rolling. Okay, so you just want to find that good number of, what's going to work here. So I'm going to go to, let's say, 600. Negative 600. Set a key. Okay, that's good. Now I don't want to, if I go to the graph editor and just look at that real quick, it's slowing down at the end. It really wouldn't slow down at the end. Here it would be an abrupt change. So I'm just going to click on this one and make it linear, because that's what it would be. Okay. So now we start rolling a little bit. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on the other way. So we have a keyframe here at 95. So we'll go up to where it's going to change, 137, and we'll rotate it the other way. So this should be positive. Now, if this was negative 600, we're basically going down the ramp again. This should just go back to negative 60. Okay, because negative 60 is where it started. Here, there's at negative 66 or so. So if we're going the same distance, it should be the same movement. So again, let's watch it. Good. Okay, we'll do the same thing. We'll go to where it's going to be swapping directions. We'll put this at negative 600. We'll go up to here, all the way to this guy, and that's where we get to play again with it. Now, where is this one going to be? Somewhere, let's say there, 75. So now we rewind and check it out. It's not going to move very much. All right, let's go to the graph editor and take a look. That from here. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. This first one is going to be eased out. This last one is going to be eased in, or linear in. There we go. So this side is going to be linear, and then that side is going to be smooth. All right, that's good. Good, good. Okay, so you see on the left, we always have that linear, linear, linear. On the right, we have the transition. All right, so now let's see the ball roll. Rolls down the hill, rolls down the hill, rolls down the hill. There, it didn't really roll that much, okay? So let's add a little bit more rotation to that. And on the way I do that is I grab this side and just pull it up higher, okay? Sometimes you just hit it, I'm going to say right, you just hit the rotation correctly, and it's actually rotating a lot more than it looks. Pull this up even more. So you see here, even though we added more, it looks like it's barely rotating. You just got to find that sweet spot. I'm going to go crazy with this because it doesn't seem like it's finding that sweet spot. Alright, if we look at this, just so you can see what's happening. Okay, it's at negative 545. Negative 535. So it's only going like about 10. It's still in this area of, this transition. I'm going to make this weighted. Take this and make it a free tangent weight. I'm just going to pull that in more. There we go. That's better. I just need this now to wind down. So what's happening is down this ramp, it was just in that transition period still, so we weren't getting anything. Now I could have gotten around that too just by setting another key let's say here, and that way I have my transition to this, and that's a lot smaller than it was for that big one. And then this guy I can just keep as spline. There we go, good. And then we'll add a little bit of rotation going around this side, like that much or so. Again, we look at it and see. You know, don't ever just kind of like blankly put one in there, or blindly. All right, and then we go into this, and then we continue rotating that same direction. All right, so that should be good. Okay, you'll see I got a little bit of a quick rotation there, right there. Okay, we're rotating. We're supposed to be coming to a stop. But we have a quick rotation, okay, because this guy here wants to be flat. That way we stop. Good. A little bit of rolling, and then we roll more and go up. There we go. Rotation is done-ish. We might have to tweak it afterwards. I'm going to say it's done. So let's just go here. Rotation done. 0, 4. Okay. So now that's the rotation. And again, we can look at it. Always have it selected so you can see the rotation. Now that spot here just seems a little bit sticky still. So it looks like it's getting pushed right there. So I'll adjust that at some point. Right now I don't really care about it. Alright, so now we go back to this, and we're going to add in little bounces. Okay, so here's how we add in the bounces, is that we just say, okay, there's a keyframe at 40. There's a keyframe, you know, way down here at 74. So we're just going to go up to, let's say, 50. And we're just going to key the translate X and Y. Okay, then we cut between them, and we just move this up and set another key. So now, okay, really abrupt, boom, you know, it looks kind of funky. So we go to the graph editor and just look at those keyframes. Let's do one at a time. Okay, so here's the X one. And you'll see why it looks funky, okay, because of this guy. So we just take this and just pull it in, smooth that out, good. Then we go to the Y and do the same thing. This guy's funky. So just make it look like a bump. There we go. See how nice that looks now? And then we do the same thing down here. We wait for it to hit. Okay, it hits at about 95. We go up a couple frames, 106. We go in between, add the little bump, and we just come over here and tweak it. Okay, this one actually didn't need any tweaking in the Y. Let's see at the X. And the X looks good too. Okay, so that's good. So we're just going to continue down the way. Okay, let's go to this one. We're at 136, so we'll go up to 144. Go in between. And check out those graphs and take a look and see. Those look good. Okay, sometimes they'll actually, you know, go a little slow. So I just adjusted the direction of this. Take that like that, and a little bit in the X as well. Okay, and sometimes it just goes too high. There's a little bit too much movement. So then I'll just take this and just scoot it down a touch. There we go. Good. And we'll come down here. Go 180 and set a key. Go in between. Move it up a bit. Set a key. And you see the process for this. You know, it's a pretty easy process once you have all the other stuff set up. Good. And then a little bounce here. So we hit. Let's go check that out. Alright, that looks nice and smooth. So there might be a little bit of a bump up right there. I had to break that in order for me to adjust that handlebar. Let's check out the Y also. Okay, these guys here, just gonna make these linear. There we go. So it was a little bit too quick right after that. Let's go to the X. Actually, sorry, the Y. And this handlebar here should be linear. Shouldn't slow down before it hits. Okay, and then the X. Go back to that guy. And it's still like bumpy. I'm trying to see why it's still bumpy. Let me get rid of the X. Something in the Y is doing it, or something here. Doesn't typically, you know, affect other stuff, but sometimes it, you know, you just catches something wrong. Yeah, it's a bit better. Okay. Alright, so there we go. So now our bouncing is done. So we go to Save As. And we call this bouncing done. 0.5. And there we go. Okay. So now we can go back and tweak all the little things that we need to tweak. That little area right here where I'm just, you know, not really thrilled about this transition, I can go through and adjust that. I might be going through the dope sheet. There we go. And just kind of pulling some of these keyframes in closer. It might be going into the graph editor. And where are we at right there? That's our rotate, I don't want that. And maybe just adjusting this so it never really comes to a rest. There we go. I need to add a little bit more rotation here because I think the rotation basically stops at that point. I don't want it to stop. It should just slow down. It should maintain whatever the ball's movement is, that's where the rotation should be. There we go. That's much nicer. Okay. Good. So now we have 330 frames of animation. Wonderful. I'll save it again. Save as to. And then I'm just going to set up my rendering. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole rendering process. I'm just going to show in my one that I did, the example one. Go ahead and save that. The setup that I have on this. Okay. So let me make a new camera. Alright, so in my render settings, I did do linear workflow just like I did on the bouncing ball. So color management, sRGB linear. I used OpenEXRs, name.number.extension. I should have set this to RLE compression. 1 through 380. Perspective view, HD 540 is default. Under quality, I turn my quality up to 2. This is the no motion blur, so we have it off. When we do motion blur, we do no deformation, and we pull it up to 15. Okay. Indirect lighting, I was using Final Gather on this, so I had Final Gather on. I was getting a bunch of tiny little points, so I turned my point interpolation up to 200, my accuracy up to 100, and I did use image-based lighting. I found a HDR, turn the primary visibility off, click, click. I also brought it into Nuke and just blurred it, just so it's not, so crazy. All right, so there's my HDR sphere, and then inside here I made a coved shape. Let me hide this sphere so we can see this. I made a coved shape for my light so that the light wouldn't, the background wouldn't be so harsh. So I have a nice little shape right there. In the outliner, I have an area light. And I just have a single area light here. Color is white, 1000 intensity, quadratic decay. It's using the mental ray light shape. My samples are up to 1. For my textures, I have 3 main textures. One is this blue, okay, and it's not labeled, but this is my background. And let me open up that image again so you can see it. Okay, now my background, you'll see, this is not blue. Right, it's not blue. It's actually like this beige color. But because my lighting from this HDR sphere that's out here, display, show all, come on, there it is. Because this is so orange, in order for me to counterbalance that and not have my background look crazy orange, I had to color it blue, because blue is actually the opposite of orange, right? It's the complementary color. So by adding that and really lightening it up, I was able to get the color I had in that final render. Okay, I wanted it to be like a off-white, beige or cream kind of color. So mathematically, I just figured it out using the background or using that blue. So I took the reflectivity off. Glossiness is really low. That's the background. For my ball or the planks, I used one of these presets. I think it was matte plastic or something like that as my default. I lowered the reflectivity, lowered the glossiness, lowered the weight of this diffuse, and I'm just using this image. So I just found this piece of wood picture on there that I just dropped on. I did have to do some UV layout on those, so if you want to do UV layout, you can. And then I also added that into the bump, so I have a tiny bit of a bump on there. Okay, and then the ball is the most complex one that I did. And with this one, I created this ramp. And the ramp has this black, white, black, white, black, white here. And that's what's giving me the look of the ball in this final rendering. You can see that it has that line here, and these caps are also there. That's just coming from this. It's basically saying there's no reflectivity here, no reflectivity here, and no reflectivity there. Okay? And I also have where this other color is coming from, because it's not there anymore. I had another color that was mapped in here that was giving me some grain on this. I don't know, it's still like connected somehow, or Maya thinks it's there for that, but that's what the ramp actually looks like. So ignore this little gradient pattern, or this little slashy pattern. Oh, I also set this to a U ramp and interpolation of none. Alright, so then for this, I did use this same ramp as the bump right here, and I also used it as my reflectivity color. And what that does is it just Again, no reflection in the middle, reflection on the white areas. And I did map it through a gamma correct, although I technically did not have to do that because it's black and white. Adjusted the reflectivity, adjusted my glossiness, adjusted the weight, and that's pretty much it. I think I did something under anisotropy. I set this to 0.1, and that gives me just a little bit different. If you look at the shine on the ball, it has this kind of radial pattern going from the center outward. Whee! Wonderful. Okay, so that's my textures. I just said the 3 of them there. You don't have to do the exact textures I'm doing. The goal is just to make it look nice. Okay, and be mindful of everything that's going on in the scene and how the colors are working together and how the lights are working in the background. If I didn't have this here, my reflections wouldn't be working correctly. My lighting wouldn't look the same way. Okay, so that's why I added that, because this guy is a highly reflective sphere, except for those areas there's no reflection. So I needed something to reflect in there. So that's why I added this big HDR sphere. Also, it adds a nice little coloring to my lighting. You can see the lighting here without that sphere is just kind of boring. Alright, so that's it. Make sure you render out same thing as before. One is a no-mo blur, and one is a motion blur. Make sure you turn that on correctly. You'll notice the camera in this, if I go to a perspective view, the camera just follows the ball down. That's all it's doing, just following it down. There's no crazy camera movements. It's wonderful. Here's an example of a bad camera movement. And this is, I get these because people think that they're directors, and because it's 3D, we should do all these fancy things. I'm just going to go here, go there, and then just halfway in between and say, okay, there's the ball. And that way over here, oh, this would be a cool shot. Just getting it right off of that. Oops, I inside a key. See there, there's a cool shot there. Alright, now you have to make sure the ball's in there all the time, so then we get into this mess of adding extra keyframes. There we go. So now let's watch that horrible camera. Horrible. Alright. This is what the good camera should look like. Make a new camera, blue circle on. I'm going to frame it at the beginning. Okay, and I don't want to just frame it like bam, zoom up on it. I want to have, where's the ball going? There we go. So now we have an idea the ball's going to hit here. So I set a key at the beginning. And then I go up to, let's say 160. I just move the camera down. I'll try to keep it pretty even with the ball. Set another key. Now I'm going to preview that and see how it looks. I want to see what the ball's doing on the side. Okay? So even at like 70, I'm going to set another key here so I can see more flatly what that plane is doing, how the ball is rolling down that plane. That gives me a better idea all the way down. I know about 250. Oops. We're pretty close to that. Not there yet. 275. Let's go 280. Okay. Then I'm just going to frame this up. And we're just watching it go down. You see, we're just following the ball. That's all we're doing. We can see the ball making contact with the ground the whole time. That's what we want. Zoom out just a touch here. Let's see how that looks. I think I might just want to get rid of this keyframe. delete. Okay, I want to get down a little bit sooner, so I'm just going to scoot that. The trick is when you're setting keyframes for cameras, you just let Maya do all the work. There we go. So now, looking at that camera, it's wonderful. Look how smooth that is. We can see the entire motion of this. It's beautiful. That's the kind of camera we want. Okay. So then again, we make sure we go to the Common tab and pick that camera from here. And if it's hard to figure out which one it is, well, I know this is the right one here, so I rename it Render Cam. And now when I go to the list, there's Render Cam. 1, 2, in this case it's going to be 380. There we go. Okay. So that's your render setup. You're rendering them both out, bringing them into After Effects, making movies just like you did before. And that's it. That's the ball on track. Save your iterations, save often, back your stuff up, the whole routine.